Hello, Crowfall backers.
Howdy, everybody.
It is December 2016. It is time for another episode of
Ace Q&A.
Ace Q&A with
Thomas Blair, lead designer.
and J. Todd Coleman, creative director of Crowfall.
All right.
On to the questions. What do you got for us, Mr.
So this
Blair?
month, we got 10 or 15 pages of questions, and primarily all over the board. So we're just going to go with page 1 and 2, which is about skills and Big World.
Okay.
Okay.
So section 1, skills. Section 2, Big World. Where are we? What do we learn? And what are we doing?
Great.
All right. Question
Simple
number 1.
Would it be possible to provide the time for each level assuming the same skill?
It is not possible. I'm sorry. It's an impossible task. Yes, no, we can.
Absolutely.
I don't know that we really want to necessarily. Well, I mean, you can pull the information. It's not hard to get. But all of these numbers are highly suspect. Like, we took a first pass at numbers, and your initial cut is just to get the system up and running.
Absolutely.
So don't get, we say this all the time, don't get too hung up about the number of anything in the game. Really,
Get hung up whether it works or not.
Right.
Right? That's where we're at right now. We'll go through and make a final tuning pass. But the bigger point is, at some point on there, the skill tooltip will show you 3 days or 2 days to get the entire skill.
Right.
Right
Yeah.
now, it just shows to the next point. We will make it so it goes to the entire
Yeah, that's a
skill.
good point. Yeah, the communication, the UI absolutely could be better. No
Again,
question
that's
about
also
that.
in its first stage, too.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Oh, and actually, this was a crafting one that snuck in, but it's a good... is there a way to put a blacklist on your NPC vendor thrall such that Todd was a jerk to me, and I don't want to sell to him ever again?
Currently we have neither the buildings nor the thralls nor the vendors. So it's kind of, we're making now an assumption about a system based on assumption about a system based on assumption about a system that we haven't built yet. However, in this area, I feel pretty comfortable saying that yes, we do intend to create a blacklist. It's part of the general rule with kill on sight list as well. Where you'll be able to set up your guards and say kill this guy.
Not there, but good question.
Yep, and it is coming.
We will do that.
And yet another skill question.
Another skill question. Does each point trained in a skill give you the same increase in the related stat, or is there diminishing returns? I.e., does point 1 have the same value as point 99? And the answer to that question is yes. They give you the exact same amount of skill. However, it's faster to get the first 75-80% of a skill.
Right, so there is a diminishing returns curve built into it, but it's based on the gain, not the actual reward. We could have gone the other way. It almost doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is put in like 4 different things that are all diminishing returns, and then you've got all these knobs that are interrelated. It's better to isolate. Usually, it's better to isolate it down and pick your one area, because then you're only, when you tweak a knob, you're tweaking that one knob, and everything else stays the same. So,
It's also, if a skill gave you 5 points, we don't want to give you 1 point and then put 4 points in the final 5 or whatever percent of the skill.
Right.
You get it linear through the one.
But again, back to my earlier caveat, all of this is subject to change. Like, we could decide tomorrow, this whole, the whole way we did ramping doesn't work, or the whole timing doesn't work, or whatever. All of these systems are interrelated, which means that there are times when, for something that seems completely unrelated, you make a change over here, and it has a splash damage that affects something way over here. So don't get too hung up on the numbers yet.
Funny caveat on that, or not caveat, funny side story on that is that in testing we found that, hey, somebody was getting 1,300% damage bonus from our initial skills.
Seems impressive.
But more importantly, did it work rather than the exact values? And we've, of course, fixed that now, but it was kind of amusing. Simon was just going around one-hitting everything.
Okay.
We're like, what the hell happened here?
This is why we are in pre-alpha.
Yeah. Test. Okay, next question. Is it intended that we can skip the entire initial harvesting tree and jump right into one of the specialty familiarity trees hidden on the far right?
That's a no, right?
Correct. So
In fact, it should be fixed now, isn't it?
In fact, yes. In the latest versions of Big World, there is a progression, which is a little weird for people who had trained into those trees, because now they're locked out.
Okay.
And they have to go back and train the prereqs to continue training. But that's just part of us fixing it and actually building the tech after people were
Well, the easy way to fix that, of course, would be to do a wipe, but we don't really like to do that unless we have to.
Right.
So, especially at the skills and account level. So we'll probably just let it ride until it makes it apparent that it's fundamentally broken, and then we'll go ahead and do a wipe.
But the prereqs aren't that bad. So just go back and train the prereqs, and you should be fine.
Cool.
Cool. Next question. Where was the
Skill training through the website or through an app.
correct?
They basically the point that was being made is this would be a great thing for VIP members if I could train on the go without having to log in the game. I actually agree with that. I think it'd be really cool. We've discussed. We just don't have the resources for it right now, but we would love to put it on the put it on my phone. I'd love to put it on the web, and we've even talked about adding a queuing system as a benefit for VIP.
In case your skill finishes at 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's a convenience, and that's exactly the kind of thing that we like to put on VIP. Is things that are not technically more powerful, but they are definitely more convenient because we do want to drive people to get VIPs. Though if they choose not to, they're not at a giant disadvantage. It's just a little bit more obnoxious. So,
All right.
there you go. One more question out of skills?
Another skills one. This was the one that tends to come up in most of the threads, which is the power differential between new and veteran players. Meaning someone who comes into the game a year after having other people in there, right? And all of a sudden he's at ground zero.
On skill training specifically. Because there's already like, I just don't know the game and
I don't know my powers. What the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, so yes, that's all true. On top of that, there is also the fact that you're just a year further in skill training than I am, and that creates a power differential. So the diminishing returns curve absolutely helps that. It means that I can catch up to you. You're not just going to constantly be forever
Our
above
gains
me.
aren't so big that it's character up here and new character down
and
here.
you can even see that now. I mean, that was our goal the whole time, was a very shallow power curve. We didn't want the WoW style situation where a 50th level guy can take on an infinite number of 40th level guys.
He's just one hitting everybody.
Right. We wanted a situation where even if I'm a maxed out character, I come around the corner and there's 3 mid-level guys there, I'm in trouble. Or actually, really, it's not even a question of the math. It's how skilled am I? You know, how much do I know how to play my character?
There's a lot of, this is one of those questions where it's like focusing on that one issue when really it's going to be, they don't even know their powers.
Absolutely. So, so that said, all of that said, we do intend to put in some catch-up mechanics after launch.
Right.
We just haven't planned those and built those out now because it's not a problem.
We've seen a couple
on fire right now.
We have much bigger problems. We have seen a couple games have various methods of catch-up mechanics, and we'll probably look at all of them before we actually build one. But that's, as we like to say, a future Todd and a future Blair problem.
Right, exactly. There's problems that you have to solve now, and there's problems that you can kick the can on. Sometimes you go ahead and kick the can just because you can't tackle everything at once. There's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah.
So this is one that we are going to punt, and maybe we'll curse ourselves for punting it later. But again, that's also a future Todd problem.
Future problem, right? We know we got to solve it way in the future. In fact, that one's so far after launch, we'll be happy when we get there.
Yeah, I'll be delighted. When we get to the point where that's actually an issue, it means we're launched and our game is successful enough that people care. And that's fantastic. I would love to be there.
Okay.
All right, and now the second part of the ACE Q&A, we're going to talk about Big World, right? So what we've done so far, what we've learned so far, and where we're going next.
Correct.
So first of all, I'd like to remind everybody that we called exactly how this test was going to roll out.
A month ago.
We called it and we said, guys, this is going to be a bloodbath. That's actually the phrase we used, and that's exactly what it turned into. And we knew that going into it. We also said that it was going to be more test than play test. And actually, I'm delighted that it was way more fun.
It was more game.
It was more game than I expected it to be. It was a lot more fun.
We overachieved once again.
Right.
And it became a playable thing that people wanted to come in and play.
Right. So, unfortunately, what we expected to happen is exactly what happened, right? It's roving bands of thugs. And the downside of that is for new people who just jump in, they get rolled once and they're like, oh, that wasn't very fun. And they get rolled again and they're like, hey, what the hell is wrong with this game? And they get rolled a third time and they say, I'll just come back in the next test. So we need to now swing the pendulum the other way and create a safe area where people can actually do the crafting and do the harvesting, things like that, in preparation for building the loop, right? Which is, I've got people who are crafting and creating items, but they can't do it without getting raw materials. And to get those raw materials, they're getting them from people who are actually willing to brave the campaign worlds. And those people are coming back, bringing those raw materials to get better crafted goods. So you've got that full loop. We don't have that, but that's next on the list for us.
Yes.
So.
Well, and back to Big World 1.0, the things we've learned, there was a whole bunch of tech stuff that we put in there that we really haven't been telling people what we've learned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so after a couple days, we found out that our database was filling up, and the engineers had to go in and rewrite a bunch of stuff.
Which is not unexpected, actually. That our entire approach with this project is grow into your success. One of the things that we're all terrified of, and rightfully so, is building a bunch of tech and then propping it up on launch day and having it collapse. All right, that's an excellent way to ruin 4 or however many years typically for MMOs. For us, it looks like it's going to be about 3. That's a great way to wreck all of that progress that you've made. So instead, what we're doing is we're building a little bit, we're testing it. We watch it until it falls down, and we figure out why it falls down, and then we fix that, and we put it up again. We test a little longer. We invite more people. So we're growing into our success over time, so that eventually, once we actually hit launch, the risk is the ones you can't control, which is, do players find it fun, and can we find an audience? So
some of the other early ones, the trees that wouldn't respawn.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Yeah.
Right. What was funny was the entire diorama was linked to all of the nodes being destroyed before it respawned.
Yeah.
So it had to wait till the last node. The same thing with all of the trees. Unfortunately, all of the trees were in the same group. So if somebody harvested, it reset the timer.
It reset the timer anywhere in the world. So any tree in the world got harvested, and all the trees were like, okay, I need to wait another 15 minutes before I repop.
So eventually the entire world was empty of trees.
Except for like one hidden tree off in a corner somewhere that nobody knew where it was. Yeah, so that's, we found a bunch of this stuff. We find stuff all the time. We just found one actually this week that some of the harvestable dubers, the little things that pop up, were falling under the ground and infinitely falling, like falling forever.
Forever. And thousands of them were piling up because technically
in this infinite abyss.
They only last 45 seconds after they hit the ground and deploy. Because they weren't hitting the ground,
they were lasting forever.
They were never deploying.
These were actual physics objects, meaning they were, as they were falling, they were looking and saying, hey, am I colliding with anything? Hey, is there anything that needs to know about me? And they're all shouting that. So over time, what we saw is we saw server performance degrading, but it wasn't directly connected to the number of players. It was indirectly connected to the number of times players in the game had harvested.
Right.
So we'd see the player number shoot up. It would come down, as it naturally does, later at night. And yet performance wouldn't improve. It would continue to degrade. So that was a really interesting one. We find stuff like that all the time. It's just, it's an infinite parade of bugs.
So we've also started optimizing severely, and what inevitably that means...
Severe optimization.
Well, we're going to the very low level of everything,
Yeah.
which means that all of a sudden crazy things start breaking.
Right.
And you're just, it's like, how did that break? Oh, it was related to an optimization that did something else.
Yeah.
For example, Steve optimized tags in the power system, and all of a sudden the campfires were breaking, but it pointed to the tags because they went through the power system. And it was just this, you wouldn't expect the campfire to break when he's doing something to combat powers.
Right, yeah.
And yet there it
But
was.
it does. That's the way it works.
So all of these things are happening. There's a lot of good tech changes coming out of this. And I can't thank anyone enough for being in there.
Yeah, so again, this is probably a great time to thank you guys for continuing to support and help us test and help us build this product.
Absolutely.
You are absolutely a vital and necessary ingredient to making this game. We've had a great year. We've seen a ton of progress, and that vision is now starting to actually emerge, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Totally excited and looking forward to next year as we turn this thing from a vertical slice into the actual game, into Crowfall.
Yep. So any more on 2.0? What else are we getting?
Vessels, Death and Respawn, a whole bunch of stuff there, and that'll be coming to you guys very, very soon.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's it for this month. So
Yeah.
keep your questions coming. Obviously, we don't get to all of them, but we try to go through and pick the
Well, we'll
ones that
save
we
this
hear the most.
for next month, too.
And we'll go through and we'll answer a couple more next month. And thanks for sticking with us as always, and we will see you in game.
See you in game.